Hello and welcome to our new mod tool tutorial video. I'm Dragon, and today we are going to talk about events. Events are a very powerful tool that allows you to display certain advisors, images and text for the player. And after presenting a couple of options for the player will decide what action to take, what option to choose, and based on their decision, the effects will be applied. So let me now open the events editor and show you how to set up various events. First of all, as you can see, the events editor is divided into two columns. On the left, we have the event categories column, which serves organizational purposes. And to the right, we have the proper events editor that allows you to edit various event groups and single events. And so, going from top to bottom, here we have basic settings that allows you to set up, for example, minimum interval between events. And this is the number of days during which no events should be drawn. They can be triggered if they were triggered by an effect previously, but no new events should be drawn in this interval. That number allows you to basically set up the time in the game that the player will be safe from new events. Underneath we have default draw settings that set up the basic probability for displaying new event for the player. And first of all we have the priority, and the highest priority actually is 0. The lowest number is the highest priority. We have the check interval, so this is a number of days between the probability of spawning an event is checked. And we have the draw chance, and this is our percentage chance of drawing new event. So let me set up the default draw settings for our events. Let's say that, for example, I want to check events each 25 days. And I would like to have my draw chance of 15%. So any 25 days I will have a 15% chance of spawning new event. And after spawning new event, I want to increase the interval. So for example, after spawning, I want this number, 25, to be increased by additional 20 days. And of course, I can also set up this minimum interval between events and, for example, make it 15. And this setting is different from this setting here of interval increase, because you can have different priorities of events, different event categories with different draw settings. And if there are different draw settings, this global minimum interval between events setting is taking precedence. And here is also the button to increase the chance of spawning new event on a curve. So for example, here we can set up days since the last trigger of event and how the chance of triggering new event is increased or decreased. So if you want to lower the amount of events spawn after spawning one event, you can set up, for example, here 10 days and have your chance lowered by 5. And that means that for 10 days after spawning one event, the chance of spawning another events will be lowered by 5. And here underneath the basic settings we have event categories. There are 3 distinct event categories: on-map events, whenever possible events, and global events. And these are predefined categories that have their own rules. For example, on-map events allow you to create events that will happen on provinces. They can be ongoing events that happen on a province, for example, natural disaster, and the player can deal with them in their own time. They are not pausing the game. Whenever possible event category is probably the most interesting and important one, because those are events that are completely ignoring default draw settings. They are spawned whenever possible, so they only take into account conditions. We are going to talk later about configuring and setting up single events, and I will show you how to set up conditions for them. But this events category is very useful when you want to be sure that something happens exactly at the moment that you want it to happen. And underneath we have global events category, and these are basically informational events that are spawned for all countries in the world at the same time, and they have some limited effects capabilities. and they are very useful for primarily storytelling purposes. And underneath our three predefined event categories, we have our random events categories. And this is basically a list of all event categories that you would like to create for your mod. And here you have the button to add new category, and it is spawned with the default name. And after selecting it, this event category is displayed in your event editor. You can also copy the whole category and paste it. And now we have the exact copy of the category with all the contents of that category. This category is empty, but if you would have some events here, they would be copied as well. And of course, you can delete your categories. So, for now, let me set up some event groups and singular events in our random category. So first of all, we have the category name. It is not displayed in the game, so we can have any name here that we are going to use in the mod tool only. For example, economy events. But here you can choose the category icon of the event, and it is actually displayed in the event pop-up. So let me choose, for example, trade icon, and you can also choose the advisor for your events in this category. And I have only the prime advisor here to select, but if you are going to add some new advisors, they will be also displayed on this dropdown. And this setting only decides what portrait of a character will be displayed in the pop-up, in the event pop-up window. Underneath you have the use default draw settings. This ticker enables us to use those settings here on the left, our basic global settings for events. And if we unselect it, we can set up our custom draw settings. That's why the minimum interval between events is important, because here I can have check interval for my events, for example, of 1 day or 1,000 days. And I can have different priority. So if I increase my priority to, for example, 1 here, first, all events with the default draw settings will be checked, and after none of those events is drawn, the system will try to check for events of a higher priority, or in this case of lower priority. But I'm going to stick with our default draw settings for now. And underneath draw settings, we have our event groups. And this is also something that is not displayed during the game. This serves organizational purposes only, and it allows us to create event chains. So basically a group of events that are interconnected with each other and affect each other. And as you can see, after clicking this Add New Event Group button, I have created new event group. Like event categories, I can copy my event groups and paste them, retaining all the contents inside. Event group name is also not displayed in the game, so we can have custom name here that will be visible only for us in the mod tool. So let me type here real quick. Economy crash event group. And as you can see here, we have event group icon settings and event group advisor settings. And these settings allows you to inherit those category settings that you set up here, or you can choose some custom icons and advisors for this particular event group. So basically each category allows you to set up some default icons and advisors, and also override those settings for each group and also each event. Because here, after selecting event group, I have the events editor, and after pressing the add new event button, I have created new event. And only this thing, only this particular entry on the events list is displayed in the game. And here we have all the settings of our singular particular event. So this is the title localization key, and this one will be visible in the game. So let me type here market crash. And here we have the description localization key, and this useful use default pattern ticker that simply adds underscore and D letter to our title localization key. If I unselect it, I can type custom description key, but if I select it, it will override this field here with _ND. And as I have mentioned before, here underneath you have the category and event advisor settings that can be inherited from the event group or custom selected from the dropdown. And also we have the movie clip dropdown, which allows us to select the movie that you have previously uploaded to your mod, to your project. And if you select a movie clip, it will override the graphic settings. But we are going to leave the movie clip as not set, and we are going to choose the graphic setting here. From this dropdown, you can select, for example, economy event graphic. And this is basically the image that will be displayed in the event window in the game. Underneath those basic settings that decide how the event will look in the game, we have the set appear conditions for event. And this is one of the most important buttons for any event, because it opens the conditions editor that allows us to set the condition settings for drawing that event. And only events that are meeting their conditions are going to be drawn and displayed to the player. Since we have covered conditions and conditions editor in another video, I am not going to talk extensively about it. But one thing that is very important is that all events in the whenever possible events category are drawn whenever those appear conditions of an event are met, and also any target group conditions. But we're going to talk about them in a moment. For now, let me explain all those buttons here that can be selected and disabled as you see fit. Here are the showing parameters sticker that allows you to display in the game political parameters of the country that is affected by an event. The unique event ticker is very important because, first of all, each event after being spawned can be then spawned again when it is drawn. But if we select this unique ticker, it can be spawned only once. And also for the custom game event trigger condition to be able to check for events if they were already spawned or not, an event has to have unique ticker selected. So if you basically leave this ticker unchecked, the custom game event trigger condition here will not be able to determine whether this event was ever spawned or not. So I am going for now to leave this ticker unchecked because I believe my market crash event can happen multiple times during the game. And also we have this very useful hidden ticker, and like you can expect, this one allows us to hide events from the player. And hiding events is very interesting because they can still have some options, and those options will be determined randomly or with some kind of probability chance by AI. And also you need to hide some events to create more interesting interactions between various conditions, target groups, and effects. So basically some events are hidden on purpose from the player to allow more complex scenarios. And here to the right you have the main ticker, which allows us to determine that this particular event is from the main storyline, main event chain. We have used this option to change some colors and some highlights on the event pop-up window to indicate to the player that this event is particularly important. And here underneath those buttons we have the cooldown input field, and it is useful only when the unique ticker is not enabled. So if this event can be spawned multiple times, it will have its own cooldown settings. For example, 650 days. And now, after spawning once, this event will not be able to be drawn for 650 days. And there is also the add to target scope ticker. I'm going to explain it when talking about target group conditions. For now, let me explain also the availability settings. And here is one of the most important tickers, is triggered only. This ticker allows you to choose whether this event is drawn with our draw settings or not. And if this ticker is selected, then this event can only be triggered using effects. We have various effects for triggering other events. And this is very useful because whenever we are creating an event chain, for example, economic crash, you can create multiple events in that group. And some events will provide options for the player that will spawn another event. Those options, basically like in the dialog tree, should be triggered only, so that no event from the middle of the chain will be spawned for the player. But this particular event is first in the chain, so we're going to leave it unchecked. And therefore this event will be drawn randomly during the game. And underneath here we have game mode availability. We should leave it at every in any instance, because for now there is no multiplayer support. And here we have the actor availability settings. From this dropdown you can select if this event will be able to spawn for everyone, for the player or for AI. I'm going to leave this event as a player only event, and that is the recommended setting. And here underneath we have additional conditions for spawning this event, target group conditions. And target groups are a very useful tool to create groups of countries or provinces that can be affected by events and effects in those events. So let me create new target group here. And that name is not displayed in the game, so you can type here anything that you like. And here we can choose the target type of our target group. And we have only two options, country or province. And here we have some important tickers to select. First of all, we can leave the select random targets ticker disabled, and that will draw all countries that are meeting our conditions set up here. But if we select this ticker, we can input the random target count, for example, 3 countries, and then our event will try to find only 3 random countries from all the countries that are eligible in this target group. And that is why setting the target group conditions is very important. Because, for example, if I want to find neighbors of my own country, I can go here, I can add my condition, go to country, and select our country neighbors other country condition, enable human ticker and leave it at equal, and now this target group is going to find me all countries that are neighboring my own country. So, for example, if I have 5 neighbors, that target group will find me 5 neighbors. But if I'm going to select random targets and input 3, only 3 of those 5 neighbors are going to be drawn for this particular event. I am going to leave this random target count at 1, because I only want to find one neighboring country. Here underneath we have receiver targetable. That is also a very important ticker, because it allows this target group to target also the receiver of the event. So, in this case, the receiver of an event will always be the player. But I do not want this target group to target my country. I want it only to find our neighbors, and that is already covered in our condition. And here we have target only receiver neighbors. And that is a very useful ticker, because in this particular case it basically does exactly the same as our condition. So I can check it and I can delete this condition. Let me just leave this condition canvas empty. And now this target group only targets our neighbors, and I am randomizing one neighbor from all neighbors of my country. So basically we have created this ticker to speed up the neighbors selecting process when creating target groups. You can of course set up other conditions here. For example, this neighbor cannot be an ordinary block member. And now in this particular case, this target group will target only our neighbors that are not block members. And from all of those countries, only one country will be randomized. The sticker underneath decides whether this group, this target group, will be shown in the pop-up. So when the event pop-up is displayed during the game, there is an additional smaller window with our target group displayed. But if you do not want, for any reason, to show the player what countries are there, you can disable this ticker and they will be hidden from the player. And here on the bottom we have one of the most important target group settings ticker, target required. After selecting it, when this event is trying to be spawned, appear conditions will be checked, and if true, target group conditions will be checked, and if true, this event will spawn. But if target group conditions are false, this ticker means that it will not be spawned. But in some cases you want to leave it unchecked, and then appear conditions will be checked, and if true, target group conditions will be checked, but they are not going to prevent this event from being drawn. And in many cases, this can lead to some problems in the game, so you have to be very careful when leaving this target required ticker disabled. Because if you have, for example, some event options that affect particular countries in your target group, and there are no countries in your target group, you are going to have a bad time. So I'm going to leave the target required ticker enabled. And here to the right we have the add to target scope ticker, similar to this one here in our basic settings of an event. And what those do is connected with this target scope drop down here. Target scope is basically another way to limit number of countries or provinces that we are going to find our target group in. And for example, if I check this add to target scope ticker here, now I have in my drop down market crash receiver. And that means that I have another target scope to look for target group countries here that is limited to the receiver of this event. So basically, in this case, the receiver would be the player. So in this case, it does not make sense. Market crash receiver is only my player country, and here in this event we are looking for neighbors, so it will not work. So I should leave it at world after deselecting this entry here in this dropdown. But I can deselect this add to target scope ticker here, and I can select it here for this particular target group. And now my neighbor target group will be displayed in this dropdown, and the target scope settings are available for the whole event group. So now if I create another event in this target group and go to target group conditions, I can choose neighbor as my target scope. And that is pretty useful because now when I have created here in market crash my target group and it has randomized one random country here, I want this country to be the same country in all my events in that group. So when I go to this event, I can basically create another target group with the neighbor target scope, and now that event, that new event, will also affect the same country as created here in the market crash. Because when this target group was created, in the second event, it is referenced by selecting this target scope. And you should also click here the target required ticker so that this event makes sure that this target group still exists. Alright, so we are still with the market crash event. We have created our neighbor target group that allows me to find random neighboring country that is not a blog member. And underneath we have the last options for our event options. I can add a couple of options here, and they will automatically spawn with underscore and 1 and 2 and so on. This is also the order that those options will be displayed in your event pop-up. And these are basically your dialog options or event options. Player will be able to read the description of them and will be able to click on them to choose only one of them. And as you can see, you can also copy them and paste them inside your event or copy them to another event. And event option settings are here. You can add your custom description or description localization key here. And you can also select the AI draw chance for each option. And this one is particularly important if you are going to choose the actor availability for an event to AI. When AI draws this event, it will choose between available options with this probability. And there are also some global effect execute delay time settings and effect duration settings. This is a particularly interesting feature that allows you to delay when effect is going to take place, and also how long it will affect the player country or the target country. As you can see, each option can have its own appeal conditions. So for example, you want some options to be dependent on some particular conditions in the game, you can set it up here. And also you may want to leave that option visible for the player, but the player will not be able to click on it if those conditions are not met. If you want that, you need to enable the sticker here. And also, you can check the conditions of an option for the receiver of an event or for any target group in this event group. So for example, in this market crash event, our market has crashed and I have found one neighboring country. So I want my first market crash option for the player to be steal money from my neighbor. Our market crashed, I want to steal money from them to limit our losses. And so in order to steal from my neighbor, I need to check if my neighbor has enough money and so I set a money condition, for example 1000, greater or equal. And I save that if my neighbor has more than 1000 money. And I enable the sticker so that the player will be informed that this is one of the options. And now I can here set up an effect for my option. In order to steal from my neighbor, I would need, for example, two effects. One effect from reducing the money in my neighbor country and one effect to increase the money in my country. Effects can be hidden. They can include target block. So for example, I can enable the sticker here and steal money not only from the block leader country but also from all his members. And here you have also effect execute and effect duration settings, and those override those global settings for your option. And here you have target behavior. So this allows you to select what is the target of the effect. And this dropdown is very important because it determines which type of effect is available for you. For example, now I have two receiver effect, and now I can see one country effect that will affect my own country because I am the receiver of that effect. But if I choose, for example, to target owner and province effect, I will see country and province effects here on this list. In this case, I am going to target a target group. And my first target and only target will be the neighboring target group. And here on the effect list, I'm going to choose money effect. And I'm going to type minus 500. And save. And now I have set up minus 500 money that will affect the neighboring country here. And now I can add new effect. And each time you configure effects in the configurator of effects for events, you need to create new effect holder item on this list here by clicking add new effect button. If you set up additional effect here, for example action points 10, and save and close the configurator of effects, it will be deleted. As you can see, I don't have action points effect anymore here. So only one effect per effect holder item. That is because those effects can have different target behaviors and different effect execute delays and durations. And of course, duration is available only for effects that will have kind of effect set to time or falling. If the kind of effect is constant or forever, effect duration will not do anything. And now I can set up here to target behavior to receiver for my country. Also money effect, and set up 500 and save. And now, as you can see, my neighbor will lose some money, I will gain some money, and that is my first option of my market crash event. But this option is dependent whether my neighbor has more than 1000 money. And if I leave it at that, for example, I have only this one option, and this event will be spawned because I have a neighbor, it could happen that this option will not be available for the player to be chosen. And since it is the only option, the game will basically freeze, because now you cannot close this event, you have only one option that is unavailable for you, and this is the situation that we do not want to find ourselves in, or the player does not want to find himself or herself in. So we definitely need to add new option that will not have any appear conditions, and for example, we can set up here an effect that because our market has crashed, we lose 250 money. And now we have two options of our event. If there is a neighboring country, you can steal from them. If not, or our neighbor is poorer than 1000 money, we will simply lose 250 money. And this is a perfectly fine event, after we of course set up some graphics for it and descriptions. And that is basically how setting up particular events work. Using the same methodology, you can set up all your other events and their options and their target groups, and you can create pretty interesting, pretty intricate, pretty complicated event chains with multiple events affecting each other, using also additional tools like runtime variables, like markers, like conditions, and all of the effects that are available in the game. Events are basically the most powerful and complex tool in Realpolitiks II, and I highly recommend to play with it a little bit to basically get some knowledge how it works, what it's capable of, and what are its limitations. And also, there is one additional pretty important and useful option. Here underneath we have copy event categories from other scenario. You can basically, when creating your empty mod, click this button here and select, for example, from the pandemic campaign, the file with all game events. Its extension is RP game events. And after clicking select here, I have now imported all the events from the pandemic campaign to my mod. And this is particularly useful when you are working on your mod for Realpolitiks with other people, because then one person can edit the scenario and other person can edit events, and after saving their events by simply saving the whole scenario, those events can be imported to the updated scenario that other person was working on. That is basically how we do it here in Jujubee, and it is a very useful and less time-consuming way to create multiple events. Alright, so that basically covers our events editor. Thank you for watching and see you next time.